Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, classmate. I am Clarissa Joy Dura, and I'm going to introduce the topic that my fellow group members will be discussing for today. Our topic is all about the sexual self. But first, let me introduce the other group members who will be discussed for today. First, Abarca, Avila, Chiquito, Chua, Kutanda, Dayan, Menjola, Ramos, and Toyogan. As I briefly mentioned before, we will discuss about the sexual self. But for today, we will be more focusing on a sexual self under the sexual orientation and gender identity. It is a crucial subject of a sexual self. And in order to understand yourself, you must also comprehend your sexuality and gender identity. But before we start discussing sexual orientation and gender identity, it is more important to know first the difference between sex and gender. Let's start with sex. Primarily refers to a physical attributes, body characteristic, notably sex organ which are distinct in majority of individuals. It means when we talk about sex, it is basis in our body or what we call our genitals. What do you have, penis or a vagina?
On the other hand, gender was based on the masculinity and femininity. When we say masculinity, it is about the expectations about men. We have the so-called toxic masculinity where our expectations about men are quite toxic. Like, men couldn't try for the reason that they might be called gay and things like that. So this talks about the expectations about male, like they should be strong, they should be dry, they should provide for the family, and so on. So this is what the society expects. And then the femininity, it is also the expectations about women or the expectations of society about women. Some culture does expected that the women are the ones who care of the children, of their husbands, the everything about their house. They are expected to stay in home, the house of chores, or whatsoever, and they should do the things they should do inside their home. Next is that the sex is biologically determined by genes and by hormones. On what hormones does a male and female have? Do the male have X and Y chromosomes, and the female have both X chromosomes. So sex is determined by genes, by hormones, and through genitals. And as for gender, it is learned and perpetuated primarily through the family, education, religion, and is acquired identity. This talks about where we learned and where we are taught of what would sh- what would should or what we should do. Example, in our house, they thought you as a girl you should learn the basics in the house like sweeping, washing dishes, and cooking rice. And you as a boy should go to fetch somewhere or do the heavy works that women can do. Or you should work that sometimes. And lastly, the sex is relatively fixed or constant through time and across cultures. So relatively compared with gender, fixed or constant, it is not simply can be changed, although in our time now there's some that could change their gender by getting or they got to be a transgender. But it is not the case because just like it said, it couldn't be simply changed. Even if you get an opera, if you were born as a girl and you have a vagina, there's nothing you can do about it because you were born like that. when the sex is fixed and constant. On the other hand, the gender is interchangeable because it is socialized. It may be variable through time and across cultures. There are different gender roles and cultures in our society. Just like before in some tribes or something like that, females can have education. Education applies only in males. Sexual orientation is a different thing than gender identity. Sexual orientation and gender identity are two different things. First is the sexual orientation. When we say sexual orientation, it refers to a person's sexual and romantic interest to either people of the opposite sex or people of the same sex. Sexual orientation is a spectrum. Why we said it was a spectrum? And what is spectrum? Spectrum is a condition that is not limited to a specific set of values but can vary without gaps across a continuum. When we talk about sexual orientation, we're talking about to whom you were interested. Are you interested in the opposite sex? Or are you interested in the same sex? Or you're interested in both sex? So there are different sexual orientation. First is the heterosexual. When we say heterosexual, it refers to a person's sexual and romantic interest to the people of the opposite sex. It is the common or the so-called straight when we sometimes call it, for we are attracted to people with the opposite sex. And then we have the homosexual. This means we are attracted to and interested in relationship with people of the same sex. We have different categories under the homosexual. Number 1, lesbians. Women are referred to as lesbians. Number 2, gay. Men are referred to as gay. 3, bisexual. The person who used to have bisexual personality tends to be attracted to both men and women.
Gender identity. What is gender identity? Gender identity is a person's internal feelings being a woman, man, both or neither. It is defined by your genitals. It's about your feelings. Do you feel like a woman? Do you feel like a man? It is not concerned about who you are interested in. It's concerned about you. It can be expressed in many ways through our plots, speech, activities, hobbies, and our behaviors. It is how we express gender. It's okay for any of these things to change at different times where you are comfortable. Like maybe now, you feel you're feminine and you dress in a feminine way. And you change your mind now, you feel that you're a masculine. You decide your own identity.
Gender definitions. Gender is the state of being male or female, typically regarding social construct, rather than physical attributes. Transgender is someone who does not identify with the gender they were assigned at birth. If you are transgender, when you were born female but you feel you should be male. Cisgender is you identify your sex when you were assigned at birth. Non-binary refers to someone who does not identify if he is a male or female. Gender fluid refers to someone whose gender identity changes over time from one end of the spectrum, so it changed. Genderqueer is someone whose gender identify falls on the spectrum between male and female. Aside from that, there are many other gender identities. What's important is how we respect each other, expression or feelings.
This lesson is all about triangular theory of love. In this lesson, we are happy to talk about things of love And when we hear about love, we feel alive together. And I also like this topic. As young people or teenager, we always get confused when it comes to love because young people are often easily tempted when it comes love. Before that we know the first question in this topic. How can you say you love someone? This question that we try to answer in this lesson. What's love you create and what's love you give to someone that you love? And we tackle all different components of love and hope we understand the sexual self and also the triangular theory of love.
Let's talk about Robert Sternberg. Robert Sternberg is an American psychologist known for his theory of love, intelligence, and creativity, and is quite known in the Psychological Society because he served as the president of the American Psychological Association in year 2003. And also he proposed the triangular theory of love. According to Sternberg's triangular theory of love has the three components of love, usually because of equal of importance. So first is intimacy, second is passion, and lastly commitment. And based on the presence or the absence of any of these components of love, he was able to identify 8 different kinds of love. But first, let's discuss the 3 components of love.
Is a theory of love developed by Robert Sternberg in the context of interpersonal relationship, and the 3 components of love, according to the triangular theory of love, are intimacy component, second is passion component, and the last one is commitment component. The 3 components labeled on the vertices of triangle interact with each other so as to form 7 different kinds of love experience.
Triangular Theory of Love by Robert Sternberg. You see, this picture showed the exact image of the best form picture of the triangular theory of love because it is show the different theory of love, the intimacy, passion, and commitment. And aside from that, we have a more different kinds of love, and we will discuss this one by one in the next presenter.
Okay, let's start with passion. Passion refers to the drives that leads to romance, physical attraction, and sexual consumption. According to Sternberg, passion is important to love. You are attracted to the person physically and sexually. Next, we have intimacy. Intimacy refers to the feelings of closeness, connectedness, and bondedness. It means you are comfortable with the person. You can tell your secrets, doubts, and anything about yourself, just like a friendship. And the last one is commitment. Commitment refers to the decision to love and the commitment to maintain that love. And this is a conscious decision. If you want to love the person or stay in the relationship with the person, when you decide to love the one person, you are also decide to maintain that love. Because in terms of love, it's not a one-time thing.
Non-love is based on your presence or absence. And in this instance, all 3 elements of love are absent. The majority of our personal relationship is with one another. It may apply to acquaintances or a person to whom you have a little emotional affinity. As a result, the majority of our relationships are not romantic since we are not attracted to them and there is neither intimacy or commitment. Liking our friendship, where intimacy is the only present. It is a set of feelings one experiences without the intense feeling of passion or commitment. That implies that there are certain people who remain in our friend zone because we like them but solely for friendship, intimacy, and for bonding only.
Infatuation, where passion
is only present. This is the most common root of romantic love. At is this belief, the intimacy develop over time. This is where love of first sight falls, or you are infatuated with the person you want him because she's handsome or you like him. The person talk. There there's someone kind of passion because you want him physically and sexually, like friends with benefits. They don't have a relationship at all. Always only they have a friends with more sexual, no intimacy and no commitment. Now, if we only have a commitment, we call it empty love. It characterized by the absence of passion and intimacy despite the presence of commitment. Example of this happy marriage, there is nothing left but only the contract.
Romantic love. It's a lovers who are under this category are said not only be drawn and bonded physically but emotionally. You are attracted to each other but also have an emotional bond, intimacy and passion are present because you two get along well. This is one of the most typical first steps toward getting married. It's not devoted because you don't feel a strong commitment, it's a little. Next, we have companionate love. It present with intimacy and commitment. So, companionate love, this is stronger than friendship form because of the element of commitment. So, their friendship because of intimacy and commitment. To stay in love in a relationship, it can be observed in long-term marriage. It's not like when you get older, the sexual and physical passion is not always there.
Fatuous love. Fatuous love where passion and commitment is present. It is a type of whirlwind romance ended up in a television set. In a photo, there's Kim Kardashian, wife of Kanye West. But before that, Kim was married with Chris Humphries. The two separated after 72 days. They are drawn to another and committed to one another. Next is consummate love. It is a type of ideal love because it is composed by the three components of love. This type of love sits at the very center of the triangle because this is said to be the perfect type of love. According to Steinberg, this type of love will continue to have a sex life. They cannot imagine themselves happier with another and they overcome their difficulties gracefully.
Sternberg asserts that maintaining perfect love is more difficult than acquiring it. This type of love is not enduring. Why is that? Because achieving that combines the three elements, which is intimacy, passion, and commitment, like what partner both of you shown that information, are you certain that you will still have those three aspects after 5 years or 10 years of getting married? Even if one of those three elements is lost, you may still refer to it as a distinct forms of love or different kinds of love. Before we end this discussion, passion is the fastest to fade, intimacy develops more slowly, and commitment more gradually still. So maybe that's why the love at first sight developed because passion is quickest to develop. We can get attached to a person very quickly, but we can also lose them in an instant.